Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So let the fun begin. That's right. The fun is clock ticking. Tick, tick, tick. We're closing in on another government shutdown. Thank you, GOP. We're just hours away from running out of money to pay the bills for the money that we've already spent. This is the weird part for me, because this isn't say, hey, we're going to argue over spending. This is to say, no, we're just not going to pay the bills. That's how freaky this is. So it looks like Mitch McConnell and the GOP have set hell-bent on another 800,000 government workers working without a paycheck because, last night they decided all 50 of them, they are going to block a temporary funding extension that would keep our government open just a couple more days. So it looks like maybe the end of the week we could have a fun weekend. And here's some thoughts on what kind of a weekend to expect. I've asked our good friend Phil Glover to come talk with us. Phil is the Vice President of District 3 of the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE. Phil, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you having me back.
So am I getting this right? We're ticking down. The clock is ticking to what I think most of us expect will be the next shutdown.
Yeah, midnight on the 1st. Basically, funding ends, the first day of the fiscal year is October 1st. They're supposed to have all of the appropriation bills done, and they're supposed to have all the funding in place for the next year. And that hasn't happened, of course. And so now we're going to sit here and wait to see the machinations of Congress and see what happens to our members. Basically, we're at their mercy again.
It's crazy to me. And as I said at the beginning here, the sad reality is this isn't fighting over spending. The money's already been allocated. We've already gone through the process where you should have fought over this. This is now just saying, no, we're going to punish people who have really nothing to do with it because we've got some weird political position that I don't even know why this time. Look, I understood some of the other ones. You go back to the ticking bomb of the Obama era. They wanted screwquester. They wanted some pound of flesh. I'm not seeing what this pound of flesh is just yet.
No, I mean, the debt ceiling debate, number one, it's very, it's so complicated. It's not a bumper sticker, right? But, in 2019, they did a 2-year deal to extend the debt limit. Everybody voted for it. There wasn't any, nobody tried to hold it up. This was under the previous administration. And so we piled on all kind of debt. And obviously under COVID, we've had to pile on some debt to take care of people and do the things that need to be done. And now we're not going to pay for it, basically. And we're going to tie it to the, we don't want to pay workers. And we're going to tie it together to where, we're not going to get paid. Debt ceiling's not going to get taken care of. So everybody loses.
Yeah.
No, and that's where we are.
No, and it's crazy. I mean, I have a friend who was a former congressman who says, this used to be a yawn vote. We already spent the money. It has to be done. And it's his view. We shouldn't even have a debt ceiling because the time to fight over this stuff is, like you would do in your household. If you're bumping up, near a certain spot, maybe you think about, arguing over the spending instead of, well, how do we pay for it? Maybe we argue that first and then it'll take care of itself down the road.
Well, exactly. I mean, the appropriation bills are I think a lot of them are done. I mean, for many of the issues of government, Department of Defense, VA, a lot of those are put together. The House has passed a number of them, but here we are again, at the deadline, and we're just, our members, we're just sick of it. I mean, frankly, I don't care anymore who's responsible. The adults better get in a room and try to figure out how to fix this because it's not right that members that work in TSA and Bureau of Prisons and Border Patrol and VA and everywhere else across government have to worry about putting gas in their tank to go to work because they're all going to get ordered to go to work every day. And they don't get to stay home. These congressmen want to talk about a vacation. for federal workers when these government shutdowns happen. There's a lot of worry, a lot of, consternation, a lot of problems, with people having to pay their bills if you start missing paychecks.
Yeah, no,
And,
and we saw that.
had,
We saw that back during the former guy's term, because
we had a 35-day shutdown, and that shutdown, and I just kind of, for this interview, I kind of went back. $11 billion it cost the economy, that 35-day shutdown. And here we are again playing around with this. And back then, all these members of Congress from each side of the aisle, oh, we're never going to do this again. This was a clear warning. We shouldn't do it. And here we are again. So it's just time that these people take that aside, fund government, pay the government workers, and get this settled. Deal with policy issues in some other form, some other fashion.
Yeah, maybe beat up on somebody else, because this is another one of those scenarios where, the people who have the least ability to control their destiny are the ones who this is being taken out on, and it is really just a purely political move. But here's the thing, and I go back to, and the reason I brought up the former guy is, the reality is they raised the debt, in enormous amounts. Even without the pandemic, they were still $1 trillion plus debt and deficits every year. And then you throw the pandemic money on it, I think it was almost $8 trillion that they added. And the Democrats didn't do this kind of scorched earth scenario stuff that we're seeing out of the Republicans. So for me, I come back to this idea that this is just about slowing down the infrastructure bill, slowing down the Build Back Better plan. This is their only way to hold things up and to grind government to a halt so nothing gets done, so they can have a political advantage next year.
And I think a lot of our members like to look at this and say, well, it's both sides. It's both sides. In that case, in the 2019 debt ceiling bill, when that was all put into the budget, the Democrats didn't stomp their feet and say, no, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling. They came up with a plan. They agreed with the Republicans to do it. This is Mitch McConnell. This is classic McConnell. When there's a Democratic president, this is what he does. And the Democrats generally don't play this kind of game with the money, with the funding. And so, yeah, I agree with you on a lot of that, but I do still think that our members deserve to be paid. And I think they need to find a way to get around this, whatever they have to do. We should not be penalized again. We shouldn't go through another shutdown. It's enough.
No, it is. And for me, it means there's so much that needs to be done. We're still fighting with this pandemic. We're still trying to get the economy to recover. We need massive investments for the future of this country. I mean, there's so much that needs to happen, and this is kind of like, for me, the last thing we need at this moment. Which is why I come back to my conclusion that the only thing I can possibly think of, the reason for this, is that this is going to slow down our ability to get anything done, which is going to make Democrats look bad in 2021, 22.
Well, exactly. And then the other part of this is, like, yeah, as you were saying, we're still fighting this pandemic off. So you have COVID issues. You have the CDC that's funded from the government. You've got, all of these different government agencies that are dealing with the pandemic, HHS, all these large entities that get funded in these bills. And, those people, you're going to send all the scientists home. You're going to send the doctors home. What are you doing? We have VA who's treating veterans. Do we want to not fund the Veterans Administration? Do we want to have Veteran Administration employees not paid, having to come to work? And then you look at your safety agencies, ICE, Border Patrol, prisons, TSA. Make them go to work without pay. Again, this is it's just unacceptable at this point to all of us. And I really encourage Congress to find a way here. They've got to find a way to not do this time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are focused on the the minor inconveniences. Oh, they're going to close state parks, and those kind of things are going to happen. But when the Social Security checks stop coming, and Granny doesn't have any food, or when we don't have people showing up to make sure that we have clean water or clean air, or OSHA, the folks who are going to be the ones to enforce this vaccine mandate and safe working conditions on the job, bad things can happen.
Well, I think, as with the last shutdown, at first, nobody really pays a lot of attention. But after about 2 weeks, somebody can't get a passport. Somebody can't do this. Somebody can't do that. And even though you say, national parks, you've got people on vacation probably at Yellowstone right now. You've got people with different national parks across the country. They'll be told on Friday, see you, pack up your stuff. You have to leave the park. That's what happened last time. And people started screaming because maybe they planned for a vacation for 3 years and saved the money. And now, because Congress can't get along and can't figure out how to fund government, that it impacts the public.
Yeah.
And these things, I think last time people got really angry about the Statue of Liberty being closed. I mean, it was just, there was a lot of anger about it because I can remember Park Service employees who we represent telling us how upset, the public was that they couldn't go out to the statue. And it seems like a small thing, but to a lot of people, they save for a couple years to go make that trip.
Yeah.
And then you have something like this happen.
Yeah, now we're going to be flying here in the beginning part of October. I've got something I have to do in Alaska, and I'm thinking, is it possible the air traffic controllers aren't going to get paid and they don't come and I don't get to come home? Do I need to start a contingency plan to where I'm going to be stuck in Alaska for a month? Well, I'm not complaining. My wife's doing the thumbs up, but do I have to start planning for this stuff? Because who knows how long this takes? Who knows how deep this can go? And sadly, this is the kind of uncertainty that you cannot have to run a first world country. This is not how you run a lemonade stand, Phil.
No, and then, last time we were fortunate that we had the flight attendants union, FAA, a number of the transportation unions were with us. And frankly, we had a lot of members, and again, our members are not paid like some people think. They think federal workers are all, we're not all lawyers. We're not all doctors. A lot of people are making GS2, GS3 pay. TSA workers are hourly. Some are part-time. And, we ended up using food banks. We ended up having other unions provide us with assistance for our members. And, now we've reciprocated and tried to help them during their strikes or things that they have going on. But people just, they don't understand that stuff. I get it. But, I don't want to see that again. And none of us do. And I really, we're going to be lobbying the rest of this week. We've been lobbying. I know that our members, we're gearing them up with text messages. We're trying to get them to contact their members of Congress that way and by email. So we are pushing those things, and we're gonna try to get this thing stopped by Friday.
Yeah, no, it absolutely needs to happen. So walk me through real quick. I know there are contingency plans in place. I know they've been working through them the last couple of days, as if things are going to shut down. What are the first things that go? I mean, so that we kind of understand, how this process works, this kind of controlled shutdown, how this works. Walk me through a little bit about how you see it working out.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange process, really. Like they're not allowed to authorize leave. They start to call people back in. I know when I worked in the Bureau of Prisons and there were shutdowns in 2013, they actually called us back to work, even though we were on annual leave, but they can't pay out annually. So they start to order you back to work, and we had more staff on site than what we needed to have. They will start to notify agencies to shut down that are, and I call them this only because this is the term that's used. They will start to shut down non-essential agencies, or that's what they call them. Well, those are just agencies that, will remain at home and not be in the office. Under COVID, we may actually keep some people working telework that normally would have been shut down and sent home. I don't know. But that means they're still working without pay. And, if they're kept on, then they're owed. So they start to shut the agencies down. They have contingency plans to shut buildings down, shut off, whole floors, all the things that you have to do. The Park Service starts to shut down exhibit sites, lock them down, all of that kind of stuff happens. And you'll see, by Friday afternoon, you'll see people being sent home, and they will be told not to report back.
But for the big things like Social Security, like the VA, like our military people and the healthcare that they get, that's not going to be affected right away.
Well, what has happened in the past is those agencies that have these that like DOD civilians and like VA doctors and nurses, they'll be told to report. Bureau of Prisons will be told to report the work, and all of the law enforcement agencies. The federal meat inspectors will be told to report the work. They just won't be paid. And now, at first, you're not going to lose a paycheck for a couple days because you're working off your last 2 weeks, as everybody does.
Right.
It just depends on how deep this shutdown goes. And, last time we never thought it was going to get to 35. Prior to that, in 2013, I think it was 16 days. So we had a partial non-payment. We had people getting a partial paycheck. And that hurt too. I mean, they were shocked because that first week's paycheck, they take all the deductions. So, and I had that happen to me early on in my correctional when I was a GS6. We were on a shutdown and opened up the paycheck, and they had taken all my deductions for that week. So I ended up with $150.
Wow.
For a 2-week paycheck.
So last question I've got for you, because, clearly we've got to do something. What's the marching order? What are we telling people?
We are calling Congress. We are hitting the switchboard. There's 2 switchboard numbers for the House and Senate. We are emailing and texting a link to send a note to your member of Congress. Keep the government open. Find a way. We're not, I'm not playing politics with this. Keep the government open. I don't care what you need to do as a congressman, but you need to figure out a way.
Well, as
a senator. And the Senate, mostly Senate.
Right.
As we know, it's the Senate. The House passed the bill to keep the government open. The Senate is, 50-50 Senate. Here we are.
And that idiotic cloture vote is what's holding this up. But Phil, I wish you the best. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Appreciate it, Rick. Take care.
Good stuff. Our good friend Phil Glover, Vice President, AFGE District 3. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.